Welcome to the Future Finance Show, where we talk about
treasury management on Mars.
I always say that the two quickest ways to get fired as a CFO, number one, fraud. That's easy. Number two,
I think more importantly, as a founder, the hard part is
Nicholas Kopp is the founder and CEO of Rillet, the AI-native ERP, backed by Sequoia. Nick was formerly the US CEO of fintech bank N26. Prior to N26, Nick spent 5 years in investment banking at Morgan Stanley. He holds a BA from University of St. Gallen in Switzerland and an MSc in accounting from the London School of Economics.
what does an AI-native ERP mean?
in terms of the AI nativeness, it boils down to two key components where AI is really powerful today. Starting with the data ingestion, then you have a middle piece of a general ledger ERP that's frankly not AI by design. And then on the way out again, you really can use models again and the advances there over the last 2 to 3 years. And that's where it gets really powerful again.
How should finance leaders today be using and thinking about AI? And are there things that they can do to prepare them for the future where they understand how to interact with Rillet? They know where the data is coming from.
The thing that I would encourage your listeners on is that
Future Finance is brought to you by QFlow.ai, the strategic finance platform solving the toughest part of planning and analysis. B2B revenue. Align sales, marketing, and finance seamlessly. Speed up decision-making and lock in accountability with QFlow.ai.
Welcome to Future Finance. I'm Glenn Hopper, and as always, here with my partner in crime, Mr. Paul Barnhurst. And our guest today is Nicholas Kopp. Nick is the founder and CEO of Rillet, an AI-native ERP that's backed by Sequoia. Rillet is reimagining finance operations with real-time visibility, automation, and a path to zero-day close. Before founding Rillet, Nick was the US CEO of neobank N26, where he helped lead its US expansion during its rise to a $9 billion valuation. He began his career in investment banking at Morgan Stanley and holds degrees from the University of St. Gallen and the London School of Economics. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
awesome. Excited to be here. Thanks guys for having us.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on. Glenn and I are always excited when we have our guests on because it's always good to have someone smarter than us on the show. They help carry.
I'm not sure about
These things
that.
really go off the rails when Paul and I just do one by ourselves and we just ramble on. We'll go on for hours.
We
And
occasionally
about nothing.
release an episode. And yeah, we could go hours. And we're like, well, you listen to two rambling finance guys that like AI. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Love it. Let's make it 3. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that you are so smart because you've taken on a monumental task. You know, you're not just going after one sector. You're building an AI native ERP. And thinking about the times, and of course, everybody talking about AI, it's pretty exciting. But what does an AI native ERP mean? Like, what's actually happening under the hood, and how is it different from, say, a legacy system that just bolts on AI on their platform?
Great question. And so yeah, for folks, this context, we're AI native mid-market ERP. So sort of leading the generational shift from the likes of the NetSuites of the world into the modern era. In terms of the AI nativeness specifically, it boils down to two key components where AI is really powerful today. So starting with the data ingestion, you have data flowing in from all these disparate systems, unstructured data sources in many cases, and research that needs to be done on transactions. And these are all areas where frankly, AI and the LLM technology that has been rising here is terrific at. They can go through unstructured PDFs. They can go research certain contexts on transactions. And it's really pretty mind-blowing. We use mostly OpenAI's O4 models. I guess we're taping this in June of 25. This may change over time, but to do a lot of that work. So I think that's really exciting. And for us, that part of AI is really natively embedded in the workflows of our customers. So the way data gets consumed, comes in, is really like AI enabled. And then you have a middle piece of a general ledger ERP that's frankly not AI by design. If you want to run a depreciation schedule or you want to run a deferred revenue schedule to ground, you want an LLM nowhere near that, basically, because you want deterministically always the same outcome every single time. So that's sort of I'd say the middle piece of an ERP that's by design, ideally not AI enabled. And then on the way out again, you really have can use models again and sort of the advances there over the last 2 to 3 years to parse through information, compare information, summarize information. And that's where it gets really powerful again. But it's really a sort of a 3-step process where 2 of them, AI is really powerful, the bookends, and then the middle piece, you have a good old deterministic code, frankly, that does the heavy lift for us.
Yeah, and that's a significant advantage to. I can't imagine thinking about how massive that, like how many lines of code must NetSuite be, and going through and trying to figure out how to make AI seamlessly work. I mean, I could see them trying to just throw a bolt-on Gen AI on top of it, but to go through and really make it meaningful seems like it would be a fundamental reengineering, and that's a tough. It seems like it would be a tough spot to be in for the incumbents.
Yeah, so without I always try to be like correct and amicable with folks. So without maybe focusing on them too much, but more on like what we do very unique. It is very deeply ingrained the AI in all the workflows. So traditional legacy systems are very much designed as like proper general ledgers, databases, very much not in tune with the workflows that are happening end to end that these accounting teams do. And an accountant or an accounting team will run maybe 200-300 disparate processes across multiple steps and workflows to ground that then land its way in a journal entry one way or another at the end of their process. And so for us, the way we've architected the system is very much like in line with these workflows. So again, with the way data gets ingested, the way data then gets calculated, as well as output into the all various forms is very much in line with a smooth workflow. And then that allows us also then hold the data syntax itself. Like, so we control what information comes in, how does it get saved, how does it get structured? And that itself is a really powerful part of being a GL itself, to basically control the data, but also the workflows in one. Happy to talk a little bit more about what we specifically do in AI in terms of the actual agents that we have, but at least fundamentally or conceptually, this is how we're designed.
Yeah, I'd love to know what are how do you think about agents? I know this is a topic Glenn loves. So I'd love to, you brought up agents a little bit, just kind of how you're thinking about that agentic workflow and agents and all that.
Yeah. So for us, AI agents are very much synonyms of like deeply ingrained multi-step workflows that an accountant or finance professional would do on an ongoing basis. And so examples of that are our, for example, cash rec agents that we have, or categorization coding agents that we have that 24/7, 365 will look at all the cash transactions coming in the application, will scan for patterns, context on these transactions, and try and match and map these against either existing systems or create new entries to be approved for humans in the system. So that's a very interesting sort of like application of AI where it's really helpful to have basically an agentic workflow do that work in multiple steps, what a human would usually do. Same for accruals, for example, where you have an agent in Rillet that can help you predict accruals at the end of the month. It looks at all your transaction patterns, your bills in flight, and starts making suggestions for what accruals should be booked at the end of the month. And then once you, as an accounting manager or senior accountant, sign off on that, you hit go, and we actually book the journal entry for you. So like that's really a fully end-to-end automated process there, which is once approved, obviously. And so that is just like, these are great examples of like how agents can come to life, very much deeply ingrained in the workflow. So it's not necessarily just a chatbot experience. It's very much like deeply ingrained in these like step-by-step workflows that accountants take at the end of the month.
And I love that you still have at the end, there's still the human in the loop. We're not just turning over the reins and all that. And you're spot on where I am. And in my day job, I focus a lot on building automations for accounting and finance teams, and having that, agentic workflows is the way to go. And you try to put as much as you can to the LLM, but you can end up, if they get stuck in the loop, and there's a lot of error potential there. So you try to go as rule based as you can, to prevent that from happening. But I'm wondering, we to hear Mark Benioff and all the marketing people out there who are selling their agents. How far do you think we are? And Paul, I'm going completely rogue from our designed questions here, but how far do you think we are?
I started the road journey, so you're good. I knew I'd get you going, Glenn.
How far from what you're seeing do you think we are from truly agentic behavior? And I'm not saying pull the human out of the loop and don't still have them the approval, but sort of where the agent has agency and can think and act on its own and do things without being prompted.
Yep. So for I'll give you, again, you have all these software vendors running around pitching their solutions. There's great marketing in there. I'll give you a little bit what we see hands on ground, because we use these models every day. We build these agents every day on sort of what works and what doesn't. So for us, specifically, I'll start with what works well. What works well is simple, distinct or discrete tasks, breaking them down into and multi-step workflows that you can then end-to-end run through. But the key descriptor there, or the important thing is, like, it is like scope down in terms of scope, where, for example, to that agent that we have in the platform, or we have an agent that helps run flux analyses and goes through the entries and everything else, we point it at very specific data tables because we own the GL, we own the data syntax and the architecture. We can point it at the right data tables where to draw that information from. And same with other analytics use cases, we kind of break down individual junior workflows that would roll into maybe one specific person and scope it down. And then with that level, can give it only a set amount of context, which makes the accuracy extremely high and also the speed manageable. As opposed to some promises that I just don't see realistically work just yet, is like, we give you access to everything, and then the agent magically figures out what to do. There's just too many loops to hang itself. And we all know that cleaning up a mess takes much longer than, frankly, maybe the automation time you save up front. And so for us, we see we're maybe at 5%, like, where we can go end to end on these like very broad use cases. The narrow use cases, we're pretty far progressed, and it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. I'm done, Paul.
It is exciting. So, stepping back a little bit, love to get a little bit more of the backstory. So there, how you came up with the name, how you decided to start Rillet. Most people don't wake up and think, I want to go tackle the general ledger industry. That's the business I want. I want to go up against Oracle and Sage and these well-capitalized, big, established players. And most people don't think the exciting business is a general ledger, right? It's not the area. Unfortunately, most people don't realize it's sexy, but that's another story. So give us a little bit of the background, the name, and kind of how it all came about. You decided this is what you wanted to do.
I'll start taking you guys back a little bit to sort of the founding moments of the company. We can talk about the name shortly as well. But I think there's a huge opportunity in the market. I think let's start there. I think even most people would recognize that, actually, like, just on a white paper, like type of like PowerPoint deck, like, cool, yeah, that makes sense. Someone should build something like that. I think the hard part is really having the unique insight on how to get started. And I think we were pretty unique in that way, that we just always, like, out of the gate, our ambition was to build a full GL from the ground up, full stop. There was no cuteness. There was no like sort of like shortcuts around this. And at the time when we started the company, it was end of 21. And then probably for the first 2 years of the company, that was a fairly controversial decision. Rippling was the only like platform that you could kind of point to, like, someone else has done a platform build here successfully type of thing. But outside of Rippling, there were really not that many companies. So I think that's one thing we kind of got right from the outset. It was very much personally informed by pain points that I had at my previous company N26, where I was running some of these functions, and we were looking at Workday Financial, NetSuite, Sage Intacct, all these legacy systems there. And we had, at the time, I think 5 different ledgers, nothing consolidated in sort of any meaningful time frame. Like, everything was weeks and weeks. So it was a real pain point that I saw back then. Again, combined with the opportunity, it became pretty clear that there is something there. And then I think more importantly, at a more personal level, as a founder, or also for your listeners and maybe early employee joining a startup, you then still need to like have the emotional guts to like kind of pull the trigger on the idea. And so for me, the 2 things that I think kept us going and started is, like, number one, it's intellectually extremely interesting. Like, how much cooler does it get? I know for most people it's very boring, but like, how much cooler does it get than having the ability and right to go build a GL from the ground up? No team has done this in like 20 years. You need to figure out everything yourself. So I think that was intellectually just extremely stimulating, with my background of accounting and finance through and through. And then the other thing is, you just want to build something that's meaningful. For me, it was really important that whatever I put my time to, which is starting a company is really hard, will have meaningful impact over the next 10 to 20 years if we're successful. And so that was the other criteria in the early days, where we just said like, this is going to be really meaningful if this works out. So, and so it's kind of paying off, and we're excited about that.
That's exciting. And the second part, Rillet, the name, how'd that come about?
So, a Rill or Rillet, it's ironic that as a Swiss native, so first generation immigrant here in the US, for the last 8 to 10 years, using English terms from dictionaries, but like, so it's a Rillet or a Rill is a stream of water. Most people know it, some people may not be aware. I learned it over time as well. So Rillet is a stream of water. We pride ourselves with bringing financial information together from all these disparate systems upstream into one consolidated source of truth. And that was sort of the idea behind the name. The funny part there, or the funny inside story there, is we started with a completely different name when we started out. The company was called Now, which is in my native language was a term for precision and accuracy. And then as part of our fundraise there, our investors, they were really excited about the idea and team, but they were like very clear that we had to change the name if we wanted to be anywhere near successful here as we're scaling. So we pivoted over to Rillet within the first 1 or 2 weeks of the company.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate the backstory. And I think you told that at the dinner I was at with you in December. I remember hearing that. So Glenn, you would know this, but he came to Salt Lake and I had the opportunity. We did a dinner with a bunch of finance leaders and he helped lead it, got the opportunity to chat with them. And so I remember hearing a little bit of that story.
Yeah. This is maybe actually the sort of a first time reveal on a podcast. Usually we tell the story behind closed doors. Great.
We will definitely make sure that's in the trailer or a clip. Breaking news: Rillet and the backstory.
Yeah,
Scandal
exactly.
that has not happened. No, I don't know how. First, I'd like to ask, what's the typical kind of implementation process like? How does that work for customers? How should they think about that? Because I know, generally ERPs are not known for being quick in implementation. Be a very lengthy process, and everybody laughs. Obviously, I'm speaking to two people that have experienced that more than once. So maybe talk a little bit about that, how you think about implementation, and then would love to just learn a little bit of what's on the roadmap for you guys.
So implementation is obviously a big one. Nobody, I think you're hard pressed to find a single person that enjoyed the ERP implementation experience ever. And people wear it like a sign of pride, basically, as a battle scar somewhere of like, I've done 5 NetSuite implementations in my life. So in terms of the way we go about it, so first and foremost, it's 4 to 8 weeks. Depends on how complex the business is. For easier businesses, we can even press it below the 4-week count. For more complex business, it may be even slightly above. But the range we give is 4 to 8 weeks. And that's again today, June of 2025. We have very cool paths and ambitions to bring this down into like a short amount of weeks only. And then the way that process works, and that is very unique in terms of when you compare it to the market, is we have an in-house team, all controllers, auditors, CPAs, that is enabled by technology, proprietary technology that we've built, some of it AI, some of it not AI, just deterministic rules, where we can, in a very quick process, get all the information out of your current systems, have you then as the customer review your chart of accounts, department structure, everything you always wanted to clean up but never had the time for, and then basically run a full automated reconciliation off the back of that gives you a sense of like old versus new system. Is the data correct? How does that look? And that process in itself, frankly, is a value proposition that is way and beyond what sort of legacy players do today.
Ever feel like your go-to-market teams and finance speak different languages? This misalignment is a breeding ground for failure, impairing the predictive power of forecasts and delaying decisions that drive efficient growth. It's not for lack of trying, but getting all the data in one place doesn't mean you've gotten everyone on the same page. Meet QFlow.ai, the strategic finance platform, purpose-built to solve the toughest part of planning and analysis, B2B revenue. QFlow quickly integrates key data from your go-to-market stack and accounting platform, then handles all the data prep and normalization under the hood. It automatically assembles your go-to-market stacks, makes segmented scenario planning a breeze, and closes the planning loop. Create airtight alignment, improve decision latency, and ensure accountability across the team.
I have to jump in here because
I
I
could
always,
tell. I just kept quiet. I'm like, Glenn is ready to go.
having been through a couple of painful ERP implementations, and I won't throw out who they were with, but I always say that the two quickest ways to get fired as a CFO, number one, fraud. That's easy. Number two, tell your CEO, I think I want to do an ERP implementation. And you don't get fired that day. You get fired 2.5 years later when the ERP implementation isn't done. So now, if there's ever anything that was going to make me go back to the office of the CFO, the idea of a 4 to 6 week implementation to make up for all those past injuries, I think that would get me back in. If I could implement an ERP system that quickly, I think it'd bring me back, Paul. I don't.
Yeah, so get that in writing, and there you go. But of course, you'll pick the really complex company, and then it'll be like, well, no, that was a little longer.
People always ask us out front, like, how long does it take? We're just like, yeah, we scope these things in a great amount of rigor up front, basically.
Sure.
And that's, I mean, that's really amazing. And like you said, going against these big incumbents, and it's a huge total addressable market, but it's also your incumbents are embedded in there. And it's, what's the old saying? Nobody ever got fired for choosing IBM or whatever.
Yeah,
So
IBM, Oracle, SAP,
yeah,
right? For
yeah.
choosing the incumbent, basically.
So the idea, I think, and finance and accounting people are risk averse and all that. So it's got to be kind of a hard sell to get them out. But I think when you talk about things like the short implementation and all that, but maybe, and I don't know if you use this when you're talking to potential clients, but Sequoia backed Rillet early, and that's a really strong signal in a very competitive space. And I guess so. My question would be, kind of what did Sequoia see, and what did these very risk averse CFOs see that made them willing to say, this is something we want to try, or back in the case of Sequoia?
I think the decision or the thought process of an investor and customer is a little different in terms of the way they engage with us. So I'm going to start with maybe quickly the round since you mentioned it, and then I'll go into how our customers think. So specifically on the round itself, it is very much, frankly, sort of the leaders in this in a space that is emerging here of like best product, best customers, most sophisticated customers, best team. And so Sequoia has a very rigorous, frankly, decision-making process. They were spending an insane amount, which is awesome, an insane amount of time with us leading up, even before the fundraise, but leading up to the fundraise and during the fundraise, and turn every nook and cranny, or like, what is it, turn every stone in English. Like, they went through everything in a great amount of detail, spoke to a ton of our actual customers, prospects, references on the team, and went really deep on things. So I think for them, it's just you need to get comfortable around the category itself. I think we could kind of show them why this is so exciting here in terms of generational shift, going from basically on-prem to cloud was NetSuite, basically going from cloud to AI first now is Rillet. So you have a huge market opportunity, and then as part of the market opportunity, you pick the best team basically as part of that. And so that was sort of the decision-making process of a fund like that. And then for customers more specifically, it is similar in a sense that they very much bet on a team as well. So we need to be realistic here that customers see as much as they're buying an awesome product today, they also see like the potential where this can go from here. Like it's mind-boggling in terms of innovation, velocity. Again, the AI agents that we have, the AI functionality, like it's head and shoulders already above, like, sort of frankly what some of the legacy incumbents have done in 4 years. And so I think that's sort of one thing. They very much take a bet on the team as well by buying the product. And then obviously functionality wise, the functionality is pretty advanced, and they really like what they're seeing. So that's the other element of that, combined with maybe also some other trust vectors of who else are your customers and things like that.
Glenn, I'm going to sneak in here and ask one question. I'd love to know what's, kind of the typicals. You talk to CFOs and you're trying to close these deals. What are you finding kind of the biggest roadblock? Is it, hey, you guys are new, why should we trust you? Is it, we can go with NetSuite, we're comfortable, we know what they have, or Sage or whoever? What, kind of with that CFO, what's the kind of the biggest challenge or biggest thing you're hearing as you go through these competitive deals?
What you guys said before, nobody's ever gotten fired over buying insert IBM, Oracle, NetSuite, all these names. And it's so true for our category specifically. It's true for any software category, but I think for this one, it is really exponentially even more so true.
I would agree.
Yeah. So it's really hard also to get started. So you can imagine that conversation with our first couple of customers where they like tell us like, this is awesome, Nick, we like you, we like your team, like the product is great, but like how many other customers do you have? And then at that point, like if you have 0 customers, it's really hard to like get the first folks across the line. So the early days were really hard around that sort of dynamic. By now we have a lot of referenceable customers in specific industries of our customers, so it gets gradually easier, that part. But I'd say that's the number one objection point of like, gosh, but like I know NetSuite is maybe of the legacy product, but I also know that you are forward thinking, but there is 40,000 other, NetSuite has 40,000 customers. There's 40,000 other businesses on NetSuite today. And so that's sort of like, I think the dynamic that we're piercing through, where the argument that we're making in response to that is like, this is a really long-term decision that you're making here. You can either, what? We may not be perfect. We may not have the same penetration, but you see our trajectory and ramp over the next couple of years very clearly versus something that is somewhat stagnant or has been stagnant for 10 years. And that's sort of the counter argument to the nobody's ever gotten fired for buying is like, you may actually get fired for it in 2 or 3 years when there's literally, when the gap just is very stark all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's such a great point because I deal with clients every day who it's why I'm sort of moving out of the SMB space because they just don't have the data that they need and or the resources and all that. So, but at the mid cap and even at the enterprise level, finance people they're getting pressure from whether it's boards, investors, management, whatever, to use AI, sprinkle some AI on whatever you're doing and magically fix it. But for a lot of companies, especially, if we're just talking about the CFO's office, they're going to have to wait until the SaaS providers have AI built in. They're not going to go build their own tools and all that. If you're at a large enough company and you've got data science team and you've got machine learning engineers and you've got and you've got developers that can do that, that's great. But for a lot of people, finance isn't going to get that. And I think that seeing how quickly startups are coming around AI native, as real it is, versus waiting on the incumbents to finally have some kind of AI included in their platform, that's going to be an easy way for them to check the box of, okay, we're using AI. We were getting pressured and now we are. But there's this gap even with that, and I always, when I talk to clients, I explain to them that you need to understand, you don't have to become a developer, but you need to understand what's happening under the hood. What's the difference between classical machine learning and generative AI, and what an agent is, and what an agentic workflow is, and just when you can, when it's good to use AI and when it's good to use a more deterministic system. But I wonder, stepping back from your product, just because you're so ingrained in it, people ask me every day, I'm supposed to be learning AI, I'm supposed to be experimenting. Do you have any specific things that you could say, even outside of your platform, like how should finance leaders today be using and thinking about AI? And are there things that they can do to kind of prepare them for the future where they understand how to interact with Rillet? They know where the data is coming from and whatever other tools they're using on top of it in their whole finance tech stack.
Definitely. There's one thing actually that you said, Glenn, and if I may, I may actually push back on a little bit in terms of like, people may not have the resources, may have the machine learning engineers or like the data scientists to go do this work. The thing that I would encourage your listeners on is like, don't wait for these teams. Don't use that as an excuse to not adopt AI here. So I've had, we host these dinners across the country. Paul was at one of them. It was awesome to have you. Thank you for joining. It was, people are very scrappy and resourceful these days, and you can literally build an agentic workflow yourself with OpenAI just by tinkering with a bunch of prompts. And so we had this beautiful example just at a recent dinner where someone built for a very specific workflow, they had to pick up from a lockbox, I don't know, like 50 to 100 checks every Monday or something. They built a little GPT thing where they could then just like feed that PDF, whatever they would get, into the GPT, and it would spit out a CSV file with like the amounts, the names, and whatever other information was required from there, some reference numbers, and it actually worked. It wasn't perfect, but it saved it a bit of time. And so I think what I would just encourage folks is the way to get started is like, no excuse of like waiting for someone else. Try and look at these tools yourself, and it may require a bit of time, but it's actually possible to build stuff that helps you save time with maybe, yeah, it is a 2-3 hour afternoon that you would invest this thing, or like sit down on a Saturday and go do it. But like it will save you time and you don't need to wait for others. So for me, that's sort of maybe the biggest call to action for you listeners of like, try and start tinkering. It doesn't have to be perfect. Start tinkering.
I was gonna say, I always tell people, I don't know what the base level of ChatGPT Plus or whatever, 20 or $25 a month, go ahead and pay for it. It's that you spend more than that on coffee in a week. Go pay for that. It's going to pay for itself. And then spend, I mean, the ROI, we're finance people. The ROI on something, even if it takes you, I worked with a group a couple months ago, and some guy who no developer background or anything, but got wrote code for this something that he was doing that took him an hour every day. He spent like 14 or 15 hours going back and forth. He was, for whatever reason, he was going back and forth between ChatGPT and Claude, but he was writing code to make a little worksheet, but he automated this whole process, and the ROI is simple. He spent 15 hours. If it was an hour a day, that's three business weeks, and he never has to do it again. So the ROI is right there. So I'm right there with you on experimentation.
Yeah, and also to use finance terminology for your listeners. Also, if you discount the future return that you're getting because you're uncertain if it'll work out, yeah, it even with a discount, it is worth it if you start small. And don't pick the
You can
hardest
exceed that
problem.
hurdle rate for sure.
Yep, exactly.
Love it. All right. So this is our kind of fun section that we surprise everybody with a little bit. We have 25 questions that have been developed by ChatGPT based on your profile, what it found on the internet, the questions we asked you. Tell it to come up with some personalized, fun, unique questions. I haven't even looked at all of them. We never know what we're going to get. So here's how it works. Glenn and I both do it a little bit different. I say you can do one of two things. You can pick a number between 1 and 25, and I'll read that question. Or I can use the random number generator to pick a number between 1 and 25. So this is as close as we get to human in the loop on these questions.
Let's go with 3.
3. All right. This one is under the section called naming and 0-day close ideation. We already asked this question. It's going to ask about the name of Rillet. So I'm going to go to number 4. This
Cool.
hasn't happened to us before. This is a first. All right. You aim for 0-day closes. If it were a sport, which one would it be? And what's your championship play?
Love it. And you're speaking to someone that is really out of sports in general. I love doing it myself, but I'm not generally following. So I'm going to use Formula One racing.
All right.
It is a 0-day close. Be as fast as you possibly can. These drivers have an insane amount of precision when they go around the corners and like accelerate and do their little battles through things. And whatever the grandest prizes is in Formula One racing, I think there's actually only one there. I guess we played for that.
So Paul, this is why you and I will never be a CEO or founder. We can't think this fast on our feet. We need scripts for everything. So well done. Well done, Nicholas. So okay, so I do mine a little bit different. I just, because ChatGPT created the questions, I just get it to spit out and I say, give me one of these at random, and we'll see what it comes back with here.
He's deciding if he liked it. Glenn has a little more human in the loop than I do.
This one is so weird.
Go for it.
That's all right. That's all right. It says, you once wrote a Medium post about your first audit. If the audit itself could talk, what one comedic confession would it make? I don't. I think AI was hallucinating here. I don't know, Nicholas. If you've got an answer, great. If not, we can go back to the drawing board. I don't know.
There was a post, I think that one of the first content posts that we wrote was about like going the first audit. So that part is right. It's actually pretty impressive. And then so what was the question that you asked about the post? If that post could talk?
It says, if the audit itself could talk, what one comedic confession would it make?
Okay, I'll use a cheeky one. I'll maybe say like, please stop using NetSuite.
Yeah. That is perfect. That is perfect. I don't know, Paul, every time we get these weird questions, I think maybe we need to throw the human back in the loop, but I sort of like just letting the AI just come up with what we're doing.
Yeah, this is a section where we get to show, okay, sometimes maybe it makes sense to check AI, but maybe not. Maybe it could be fun. So we just go with it. It's our unique section.
Maybe check the journal entries that get generated by AI if we're at that level. Yeah, exactly.
So I honestly don't even read them. I just throw the 25 in the document and they go with the day we do it. So
That's an awesome idea, guys. Yeah.
yeah, that's fun. Well, thank you so much, Nicholas. We've had a great time chatting with you today. Love what you're building at Rillet. Excited to see you continue to grow. Congratulations on the fundraise. I know that was a ton of work. It's not easy to raise around a capital, and to get Sequoia on the cap table is huge. So congratulations. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great seeing you guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nicholas.
Thanks. Have a good
Take
one.
care.
Thanks for listening to the Future Finance Show, and thanks to our sponsor, QFlow.ai. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. And may your robot overlords be with you.